This is Michael Morton. He is 63 years old. Morton spent 24 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. He was wrongfully convicted in a Texas court on August 17, 1987, convicted of murdering his wife, Christine Morton. I want to take you back to what happened. On August 12, 1986, Michael Morton celebrated his birthday with his wife and 3-year-old son. The next morning, on August 13th, Morton left a note on the bathroom vanity expressing his disappointment to his wife about her not being intimate with him the night before. He signed the note saying "I love you." Then Morton left for work. Later that morning, his wife's body was found in their bed. She had been bludgeoned to death. The sheets were stained in what was later to be identified as semen. The day after Christine's body was found, police recovered a bloody bandana at a construction site located about 100 yards from the Morton's home. Morton's son, who witnessed the murder, stated that it was a monster and that his dad reportedly stated that his dad was not home. Police were told that a man had repeatedly parked a green van on the street behind the Morton's house and then would walk off in a nearby wooded area. Also, police records indicated that Christine Morton's missing credit card had possibly been recovered in a San Antonio jewelry store. And that San Antonio officer stated that he could identify the woman who had attempted to use the card. According to Morton's defense lawyer, none of this evidence was turned over to them during the trial. When the defense attorneys learned that the prosecution did not plan to call the chief investigator in the case to the stand, they suspected that the prosecution might be concealing potentially exculpatory evidence. The defense raised this concern with the trial judge, who ordered the prosecution to turn over all reports by the investigators so he can conduct a thorough review. Evidence concerning Eric's eyewitness account, his son, the green van, and Christine Morton's credit card being used were all absent from the records given to the judge. The prosecution presented no witness or physical evidence that tied Morton to the crime, but they hypothesized that he had beaten Christine to death because she refused to have sex with him on his birthday. On February 17, 1987, Michael Morton was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. The conviction was wrong because intricate evidence was left out of the trial. In 2005, the Innocence Project and the law firm of Rayleigh and Bowick filed a motion requesting additional DNA testing of evidence from the crime scene. The court granted permission to test some of the items, excluding the bloody bandana found near the Morton's home. Once again, tests could not exclude Morton as the source of DNA collected from the bed. 5 years later, in 2011, Morton was finally granted testing on the bandana and hair from the bandana, and a DNA testing lab reported that testing on the bandana revealed both Christine Morton's DNA and the DNA of an unknown male. The unknown male DNA profile was run through the CODIS and matched to a Mark Norwood, who was a convicted felon in California and had a record in Texas and was also living in Texas at the time of Christine Morton's death. Under further investigation, Norwood was convicted of murdering another woman 2 years after Christine Morton's death, and the MOs were the same. So Michael Morton was released after that evidence. He was released on October 4th, 2011, after spending nearly 25 years in prison, and he was officially exonerated on December 19th, 2011. The Innocence Project is important because it is helping innocent lives be freed from prison for horrendous crimes that they did not commit. The Innocence Project exonerates the wrongfully convicted through DNA testing and reforms the criminal justice system to prevent future injustice. Morton was sentenced to life in prison. Life. He spent over 2 decades sitting behind bars for the murder of his wife. Without the Innocence Project, he and 349 other individuals would still be caged for crimes they did not commit, or worse, die by the death penalty for a crime they didn't commit. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, there have been 150 exonerations of death row inmates since 1973. Unfortunately, the system is not perfect, and sometimes people are wrongfully convicted. This means we as a society run the risk of executing an innocent person as long as the death penalty is in place. Morton's case resonates with me. I was emotional reading about this case in exoneration. In January of this year, my husband and father of my one-year-old daughter went missing while fishing on the private lake that we lived on. Authorities searched for him for 5 days. 5 days of no evidence of where he could be. The only explanation was that he drowned, but searches were coming up empty. By day 3 of the investigation, investigators took me in a room and began looking at me as a suspect in his disappearance. The spouse is 9 times out of 10 the first suspect. I was absolutely fearful. I know that they were just doing their jobs. I was 100% cooperative in the process with the investigation. I obviously had nothing to hide, but in that moment I began to realize just how easy the tables could turn, and I realized how in an instant someone's freedom could potentially be taken away from them from something that they had nothing to do with. Our boat and my husband was found on the 5th day of the search, and it was ruled as an accidental drowning. But the fact that Morton lost his wife and the mother of his child, he not only had that surmountable grief to deal with, but then he was facing losing his own freedom and the chance to raise his son. I'm so happy that Morton is finally free and he's able to enjoy the rest of his life, and that's thanks to the Innocence Project.